What if I told you that the way we track time today was once a matter of life and death for entire civilizations? That kings rose and fell based on their ability to predict when the Nile would flood, and that the calendar you check on your phone right now is the product of thousands of years of mathematical genius, political manipulation, and religious warfare? Welcome back to the Logic of Nations, where we uncover the hidden forces that shaped human civilization. Today we're diving deep into something so fundamental to our existence that we barely notice it anymore: the calendar. But here's the thing about calendars that nobody talks about. They weren't just tools for tracking days. They were instruments of power, control, and ultimately, money. Think about it. If you control when people plant their crops, when they celebrate their festivals, when they pay their taxes, and when they worship their gods, you control everything. The calendar was the first universal operating system, and whoever ran it, ran the world. Let me take you back to ancient Babylon, around 3,000 years ago. Picture this. You're a farmer, and your entire livelihood depends on knowing exactly when to plant your barley. Plant too early, and frost kills your crop. Plant too late, and drought destroys everything. But there's a problem. The moon cycles don't perfectly align with the seasons. So who do you trust to tell you when it's safe to plant? The priests. And guess who controls the priests? The king. This is where it gets fascinating from a monetary perspective. In Babylon, the calendar wasn't just about time, it was about economic cycles. The priests didn't just track celestial movements, they tracked debt cycles, interest payments, and market fluctuations. Every new moon meant new calculations, new debts, new opportunities for profit. From a banker's perspective, controlling the calendar meant controlling when loans came due, when interest compounded, and when markets opened and closed. But here's where the real genius comes in. The Babylonians realized that a pure lunar calendar created chaos for agriculture and trade. So they invented something revolutionary: the intercalary month. Basically, they added an extra month every few years to keep their calendar aligned with the seasons. This wasn't just mathematical brilliance, it was economic strategy. That extra month meant extra rent, extra taxes, extra profit for those in power. Now let's shift to Egypt, where the calendar became even more sophisticated. The Egyptians discovered that the star Sirius rose just before the Nile flooded every year. This gave them a 365-day calendar that was incredibly accurate for its time. From the ruler's perspective, this was pure gold. Imagine being Pharaoh and knowing exactly when the most fertile land in the world would be ready for planting, while your enemies were still guessing. The Egyptian calendar created the world's first agricultural futures market. Priests would calculate flood predictions, farmers would plan accordingly, and merchants would speculate on grain prices months in advance. The constituent's perspective here is crucial. For ordinary Egyptians, the calendar meant survival. Missed planting season because you miscalculated, and your family starves. But get it right, and you're part of the most prosperous civilization on Earth. Here's where things get really interesting. When Rome conquered Egypt, they didn't just take their gold and slaves. They took their calendar knowledge. Julius Caesar worked with the Egyptian astronomer Sosigenes to create the Julian calendar, which became the foundation for our modern system. But Caesar had a different motivation than the pharaohs. He needed a standardized calendar to run a massive empire spanning multiple time zones and cultures. From the banker's perspective, the Julian calendar was revolutionary. For the first time in history, merchants in Britain could synchronize their trading schedules with partners in Syria. Interest rates could be calculated uniformly across continents. The calendar became the backbone of international commerce, the invisible infrastructure that made the Roman economy possible. But every system has its flaws. The Julian calendar was slightly too long, gaining about 11 minutes per year. This might not sound like much, but over centuries, it added up. By the 16th century, the calendar was 10 days off from astronomical reality. This created a crisis for the Catholic Church, whose entire ritual schedule was based on celestial events. Enter Pope Gregory XIII and the Gregorian calendar reform of 1582. This wasn't just about astronomical accuracy. It was about maintaining religious and political authority in an age of Protestant rebellion. From the ruler's perspective, controlling the calendar meant controlling when Easter was celebrated, when taxes were collected, and when wars were fought. The constituents' perspective during this transition was fascinating. Imagine going to bed on October 4th and waking up on October 15th. People literally lost 10 days of their lives overnight. Riots broke out across Europe. Workers demanded to be paid for the missing days. Landlords argued about whether rent was still due. The calendar change created economic chaos that took decades to resolve. What can we learn from this history as we face our own temporal challenges? In our digital age, we're seeing new forms of calendar control emerge. High-frequency trading algorithms make thousands of transactions in microseconds. Cryptocurrency markets never close. The traditional boundaries of time-based commerce are dissolving. The lesson here isn't just historical curiosity. It's about understanding how fundamental systems shape economic reality. The calendar was humanity's first attempt to create standardized, universal time. Today, we're dealing with similar challenges around digital currencies, global markets, and synchronized systems. Understanding calendar history helps us recognize that time itself is a form of currency, and whoever controls how we measure and use time ultimately controls wealth distribution. The ancient priests knew this. Medieval bankers knew this. Modern tech companies definitely know this. What systems in your life operate on hidden calendars that you've never questioned? If this deep dive into the hidden power of calendars opened your eyes to how fundamental systems shape our world, smash that like button and subscribe for more episodes of The Logic of Nations.